Welcome, friends. This lodge passes on the path to truth in the ancient message of the wisdom of the ages as it was brought to us by H.P. Blavatsky and her staunch colleague, William Q. Judge. This message in action has always been before us within the laws of nature. Teachings as presented in religions of the world have a way of losing their purity through human interpretations, a problem that also holds true for theosophies. The 19th century theosophical movement, precursored in the United States by Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and Walt Whitman, and brought to the world by Madame Blavatsky, was the most comprehensive and tested message of philosophy, science, and religion ever brought to the world. It was noted that centuries may go by before any messenger will present a more comprehensive message. Robert Crosby restored this message to its original lines to include making the original secret doctrine and related original writings available to us. Our mission is to follow these lines and make available this unadulterated message as we found it. HPB said nothing she presented in the secret doctrine was original except for the nosegay of ribbon used to tie together this ancient message of the masters of wisdom. She showed the path to perfection, but we must assimilate this message in our daily lives. In this regard, the declaration of UOT is as follows. It's on the back of our program. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of theosophy without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of theosophy and the exemplification and practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis. And it aims to disseminate this idea among theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization. And it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by study and otherwise to be the better able to help and teach others. The true theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. Our reading today is from the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 9, Devotion by Means of the Kingly Knowledge. Unto thee, who findeth no fault, I will now make known this most mysterious knowledge, coupled with the realization of it, which having known, thou shalt be delivered from evil. This is the royal knowledge, the royal mystery, the most excellent purifier, clearly comprehensible, not opposed to sacred law, easy to perform, and inexhaustible. These who are unbelievers in this truth, O harasser of thy foes, find me not, but revolving in rebirth return to this world, the mansion of death. All this universe is pervaded by me in my invisible form. All things exist in me, but I do not exist in them, nor are all things in me. Behold, this is my divine mystery, myself causing things to exist and supporting them all, but dwelling not in them. Understand that all things are in me, even as the mighty air which passes everywhere is in space. O son of Kunti, at the end of a kalpa, all things return unto my nature, and then again at the beginning of another kalpa, I cause them to evolve again. Taking control of my own nature, I emanate again and again this whole assemblage of beings, without their will, by the power of the material essence. These acts do not bind me, O conqueror of wealth, because I am as one who sitteth indifferent, uninterested in those works. By reason of my supervision, nature produces the animate and inanimate universe. It is through this cause, O son of Kunti, that the universe revolveth. The deluded despise me in human form, being unacquainted with my real nature as Lord of all things. They are of vain hopes, deluded in action, in reason and in knowledge, inclining to demonic and deceitful principles. But those great of soul, partaking of the godlike nature, knowing me to be the imperishable principle of all things, worship me, diverted to nothing else. Fixed in unbroken vows, they worship, everywhere proclaiming me and bowing down to me. Others, with the sacrifice of knowledge, in other ways worship me as indivisible, as separable, as the spirit of the universe. I am the sacrifice and the sacrificial rite. I am the libation offered to ancestors and the spices. I am the sacred formula and the fire. I am the food and the sacrificial butter. I am the father and the mother of this universe, the grand sire and preserver. I am the Holy One, the object of knowledge, the mystic purifying symbol, Om. The Rik, the Saman, the Yajur, and all the Vedas. I am the goal, the comforter, the Lord, the witness, the resting place, the asylum, and the friend. I am the origin and the dissolution, the receptacle, the storehouse, and the eternal seed. And now for today's talk on the Logos. And next week's is on esoteric constitution of man.
Welcome, everyone. This is rather metaphysical, but we'll try to make it as simple as we can. Now, the whole philosophy of the secret doctrine, and I sit unveiled before it, is explained at the beginning in the poem, where she has a circle representing the unbounded universe. And she says, when we put a circle in it, it's what has been described today, what the reading was, that the universe is coming into activity again. In this philosophy, nothing disappears. It disappears from the physical world because it is absorbed into its original essence, but it remains a status quo during that whole period of rest, which is called pralaya, and then at the beginning of the next manvantara activity, it comes out. And this here is representing the activity. Now, in the Secret Doctrine, she says that there is only one substance principle. These are all Sanskrit terms because HPB said that in the future we're going to speak this language. Well, at this moment, it's very difficult to see that, but she said that English language does not really have equivalence to it, so she gave the Sanskrit and then explained as to what they are. So Parabrahman is the first. It's equivalent to space. And then she tells us this Parabrahman cannot be seen even by the Logos who starts the activity, manifestation in our universe, but it is seen with a veil thrown over it, and that is called Mula Prakriti in the Secret Doctrine. Veil. So this veil is thrown all over the universe. Parabrahman is an essence that cannot be seen or perceived, not even by the Logos, which then comes through Brahman, through Mula Prakriti, and it is considered the light. Light. And in the Kabbalistic words and the Christian, it's the verbum. So there is correspondence of terminology that we need to be aware, because it looks like they're all different things, but they're not. In the Bhagavad Gita, Mula Prakriti is called Kutasha. It's the same thing as this veil. So this is a U. Kutasha. And Avyaktam in the Sankhya philosophy. I'm going to put them here so you're familiar with it. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, you will come across those terms. This light of the Logos is called Daivi Prakriti in the Secret Doctrine. So the light of the Logos is called Daivi Prakriti, and in the Christian religion we said it is the Gnostic Sophia. And also the Holy Ghost. Okay, that's the terminology that we need to be aware of. Now, when Parabrahman becomes the root cause, it is this Logos that is going to initiate the activity in the universe. Now, I want to read to you from the Secret Doctrine, page 355. This is Secret Doctrine 1. This is from the Zohar. It says here, the indivisible point which has no limit and cannot be comprehended because of its purity and brightness expanded from without, forming a brightness that served the indivisible point as a veil. So this point is indivisible. It is also invisible. This here, according to the Zohar. But its light is such that it cannot be comprehended or seen. So what is that saying to us? In other words, that point is not manifested, because HPB calls the first Logos in the Secret Doctrine unmanifested. It is the second Logos that brings about the manifestation. And we'll continue here. forming a brightness that served the indivisible point as a veil, yet the latter also could not be viewed in consequence of its immeasurable light. It too expanded from without, and this expansion was its garment. Thus, through a constant motion, finally the world originated. The spiritual substance sent forth by the infinite light is the first Sephirah of the Kabbalah, in case you're all interested. So here we go. So, the first Logos, I'm having a weird problem to stuff. It's unmanifested. Manifested Logos. Just to show you that all of the systems of the world has this trinity in it, Prabharam, Mula Prakriti, the Logos. HPV explains here that the manifested Logos then, Father, Abba in the Kabbalistic system, Mother is Amona, so it actually represents the double-sex Logos from which issued the other Sephiroths. In other words, the Hindu Trimurti and the Kabbalistic triad is exactly the same thing. They have different names, but it is the same thing. So, Chokhmah Binah with the Kether makes it 3. Plus the Kether, which is the crown. So, in the Secret Doctrine, she most of the time refers to the Hindu terminology, but here it is Kabbalistic as well. It's the same. So, what is the Trimurti? In the cosmogony of the world, it is the light exhibiting itself through Parabrahman and becoming Daivi Prakriti in the universe. Who or what is Daivi Prakriti? Daivi Prakriti is the collective light of the Dhyan-Chohanic host, she tells us in the Secret Doctrine. Dhyan-Chohanic host represent the 7 rays of the white light. In other words, they are the ones who build cosmocrators of our universe. They build the universe. They are not in it, but they guide it. So, let's see what this says. This is page 22 to 25 in the Secret Doctrine. It's very tough to find it by going through it all the time, so I printed this from the Secret Doctrine. It says here, in the ancient cosmogonies, the visible and the invisible worlds are the double links of one and the same chain, as the invisible Logos, with its 7 hierarchies, represented or personified by its chief angel or rector, form one power, the inner and the invisible. So the world of forms, the sun and the 7 chief planets, constitute the visible and the active potency of that hierarchy. The Logos, she says, is the apex of the Pythagorean triangle, and when the triangle is complete, it becomes a tetractys, or the triangle in the square, which represents the dual symbol of the manifested cosmos and its radical triple ray in the unmanifested, or its noumenon. So the light of the Logos then comes down. The first is so bright it is not involved. The second is the one that manifests the universe. So we have to then look at the para-Brahman side and the logoic side. Okay, this is unknowable. This is the highest, she tells us, that our knowledge will ever reach as long as we are on earth. So this is the highest initiation is into the mysteries in understanding what that light is. Now, she tells us here, at the commencement of a great manvantara, Para-Brahma manifests as Mulak Prakriti and then the Logos. This Logos is equivalent to the unconscious universal mind. It constitutes the basis of the subject side of manifested being and is the source of all manifestations of individual consciousness. Mulak Prakriti, or primordial cosmic substance, is the object side of things, the basis of all objective evolution and cosmogenesis. Force then does not emerge with primordial substance from para-Brahmic latency. It is the transformation into energy of the supraconscious thought of the Logos, infused, so to speak, into the objectivation of the latter out of that potential latency in the one reality. Very metaphysical. Okay, so the light is the supraconscious thought of that Logos. So we are calling it light, but now she's telling us that everything that comes into being in our universe comes from this light, because it is consciousness, and it is the first ego. Why? Because it is individualized. It has a beginning and it's going to have an end. So it is the first. So here again, she's trying to show us unity amongst all human beings, because this light is the one that branches out and creates, in other words, it's the active power before the cosmocrators who give rise to the universes of the solar system. And not only that, it also constitutes the sankalpa, or the intelligence that's within that universe. In other words, our universe develops and becomes active from inside out. It is not a piece of mass, it is intelligent. So the universe becomes objective from inside out. It is intelligent. Our universe is very intelligent because it is this supraconscious mind of the Logos which is reflected in it. And so she tells us that the primal impress is not synchronous with the first objectivation of Mula Prakriti, because it is not substance. Mula Prakriti is the substance side of it. So we have a divergence. The logos, it's light, it's supraconscious mind, the force or the power in the universe that comes from it, that is going to give rise to all these tremendous diversity in manifestation, and in its lowest aspect then it becomes concretized matter. That substance is homogeneous at the higher levels and becomes heterogeneous through differentiation until it comes into our world and it is concretized, the spirit, she tells us, and it then becomes visible matter. We'll read a little bit more from the Secret Doctrine. Through this force, the heavenly man, who is the protagonist, the firstborn from the passive deity, and the first manifestation of that deity's shadow, is the universal form and idea which engenders the manifested logos, or Adam Kadmon, of the universe itself, and is called the second logos. The second springs from the first and develops the third triangle, from the last of which men are generated. The reader, she tells us, must bear in mind that there is a great difference between the logos and the demiurgos, for one is a spirit and the other is soul. And then she continues by saying that man was regarded in several systems as the third logos. The esoteric meaning of the word logos, verbum, speech, is rendering in objective expression as in a photograph of the concealed thought. The logos is the mirror reflecting divine mind, and the universe is the mirror of that logos, though the latter is the S of that universe. In other words, the logos is the S of that universe. As the logos reflects all in the universe of pleroma, so man reflects in himself all that he sees and finds in his universe, the earth. Every universe, world, or planet has its own logos, says the doctrine. The sun always was called by the Egyptians the eye of Osiris, and was himself the logos, the first begotten, or light made manifest to the world, which is the mind and divine intellect of the concealed. It is only by the sevenfold ray of this light that we can become cognizant of the logos. He is the force guiding the creator, which is the demiurge. So, let's revisit it.
Try the other end. See if it writes better on the other end.
This end?
No,
No,
the
the
other
marker.
end of your
Oh.
marker.
Sorry. here it is. This is the system that we're trying to explain. And we said that if this force or power wasn't there that comes from this light, the universe could not evolve. It evolves by the guidance of that light into the substance side of the universe, which is Mula Prakriti, which becomes Prakriti. Prakriti then becomes homogeneous substance, and homogeneous substance eventually, through 7 different levels of differentiation, becomes the matter of our universe. But without this force, it could not evolve. In the secret doctrine, in some of the writings, that is referred to as fohat. And I want you to see this terminology as well. Fohat is described as divine electricity, and in the secret doctrine, HPB says that it has an individuality because it constitutes the total intelligences of the Dayan-Johanic host. The Dayan-Johanic host being the creators of our universe, in the sense that they're in charge, each one, as we said, there are 7, and each one is kind of related to one of the planets of the solar system. Each one, again, is related to the substance of the plane that they're in charge of. So they're devas. In the Christian religion, they're angels. So you need to equate those terms, because we're saying this. It's saying the same thing. In the Christian side of the explanation, they're anthropomorphized, but they are powers. They have no personality. They're simply doing the assigned task. They don't know any personality or individuality in the sense that we do here on earth. So they work in total harmony with one another. They're represented by the colors of the spectrum colors. Here it is: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo blue, and violet. This is the representation of the Dayan-Johanic host in the secret doctrine, because each one represents one of those colors. In their collectivity, they are Da'ivi Prakriti, we said, which is the white light. This here, this word. Which is white light. And when we put that in the prism, it shows all these colors in it. And we'll finish it with this statement from the secret doctrine. The Logos, we said, was the spirit, and the demiurge was the soul in this explanation here. The demiurge is the one that is the creator, in the sense that it brings it out of subjective into the objective. And behind that, we said, it's this force of the logoic light which propels it. It says here, this creator is neither good nor bad per se, but its differentiated aspects in nature make it assume one or the other character. With the invisible and the unknown universes disseminated through space, none of the sun gods had anything to do. The idea is expressed very clearly in the books of Hermes and in every ancient folklore. It is symbolized generally by the dragon and the serpent. And we'll just stop it there. Yes?
I think I have 2 questions now.
Well, please ask one
I'll
at a
start with
time.
this idea, okay? God and the devil. The way you're describing it, this concept is there just to help differentiate, good and bad, but everything is included in the explanation you just gave us. So there's no, quote, separation even between God and the devil in the Christian terminology.
In this terminology, there is no devil. She calls it dragon and the serpent. Dragon standing for wisdom, and the serpent to the other side, or evil. She says that there is no such thing in the sense as good or bad, because the differentiation has to come about so that the world can come into existence, and comparison is necessary. How would we know what black was if white wasn't there, for instance? We have to be able to compare things in our universe. So it is not that the things in themselves are good or bad, but the humanity gives it that connotation. Because, as we said, this is unknowable. The highest we can go is to the surface of the circle, she told us. This is the highest we're ever going to know, is the logoic. The logos represents the surface of that circle. That is as far as we can go with our knowledge. Outside of it, we do not know. She says that each universe has its own logos. So obviously there is a specific one that is concerned with the welfare of humanity. In other words, this student understands from that humanity is protected. We don't know it, how, but this student has an idea how, but she does tell us that that's the highest knowledge we can gain. How are we going to get that knowledge, for instance? First, we learn all of the basic facts of our universe, including man himself, by comparison. We have to be able to differentiate between what we call good and what is undesirable, for instance. But there comes a point where the gunas that we had talked about before, the sattvic or good qualities, the rajasic, which represents the activity of the soul, and the tamasic, darkness or indifference or non-movement, those exist in nature. And we had said in that talk that the guiding principle is to become a sattvic human being. In other words, propel our ideology towards the universal. Oh, this is not going to come on. Never mind. Universal, we'll put it here. Universal, unselfish, in other words, selfless, compassionate. Okay, there comes in a point in every human being's life when you ask, who am I? Why am I here? What's the purpose of existence on earth? Where are we going? What is the highest achievable? Every human soul comes to a point where those questions come into the mind of the human being, and you then go out looking for truth. What is the truth about those statements? And there are all different kinds of versions of explanations, but they might at best partially represent the truth, but not all of the truth. This philosophy takes you to the root system, explains to you as to how the universe comes and how you are a part of it, that there is no separation between anything. We all evolve from this point here, which is called the logoic light, and that light is the supraconscious mind of the logos, and that is what propels into activity everything that is going to come about in the universe, because it imprints what is in its mind onto the substance side of the objective universe, it's not objective to us, but it has some substance associated with it, and that movement by Fohat, which is the energy of the logoic light, everything is propelled into activity, and then it becomes objective. After 7 differentiations, it becomes objective, and she calls it concretized spirit. Our matter is concretized spirit. It's very tough to understand what exactly she's getting at, but this student has an idea because it comes from spirit. It looks different 7 times, it changes its form, but it's only the form is changing. The essence that supports the form is exactly the same essence that comes from this center here. So if then all these Diane Chohan's work in sacrificial effort as a unity and harmony, then we on earth reflect that light. In each human soul it is reflected, so we need to learn how to work in harmony and cooperation with one another. We are not separate. We look separate. We are not separate. The light, if you want to call it soul, spirit, you can give it any terminology you wish, but it is the same essence that comes from that center. Every human soul is an expression of that center. So how different can we possibly be? It's the lower quaternary, our human principles on earth, that separates us from one another, because each personality has karmic retribution or karmic faults or karmic debt to all of nature, because we go about doing what we want to do. At first we don't know why we choose certain things perhaps, but nevertheless once we make that choice and we go along and do it, its opposite reaction is going to come back to us. It doesn't go anywhere else. So RC says each human soul is weaving like a spider its own destiny day by day. No other human soul or no other higher power is responsible for what we do. We make choices and we go ahead and follow it with action, and we do it. So that is why they're telling us, become sattvic in quality, suppress the other two, become universal and unselfish in your daily life. Consider the welfare of everything around you, not just yourself. That is the most selfish thing we can do, is to put this body here above every other body. We're not bodies, but when we look in the mirror, that image is what we see, and that's what we think we are. We are not. We are that light. The light that comes from the Logos is our true identity. Yes? Yes?
Can you tie this to the central spiritual sun? How does that fit into this?
Central spiritual sun, we talked about last week, and now I can't erase any of this, it looks like. Okay, sun. And in the secret doctrine, this is also called Surya. And we said that the sun, in that talk, is not physical. The sun is a window cut into that reality, and it reflects what it is behind it. In other words, the sun and its light and its power is not physical or visible. It is invisible, and it is controlled at an archaic level. And that is what is the central spiritual sun. Now, remembering that HPB is explaining in this secret doctrine that each world, each system has its own logos, there's obviously a particular one that is associated with the solar system because it's protective. The light is protective in itself. So That is the central spiritual sun behind the physical sun that you're referring to.
Can we say it's the second manifested logos, first manifested logos?
The first one is so bright, we just read here, the indivisible point, it represents this indivisible point. So manifestation cannot come from an indivisible point. It has to become finite and it has to have individuality. If you read the explanation of Sephirah, in explaining the Bhagavad Gita, he gave a tremendous explanation on the Logos as well, and HBB quotes in the Secret Doctrine from that article. So the second one is the one that brings about manifestation. So if you go to the logoic light, which one is it you're asking? Well, you have to determine that for yourself. The first one is so bright, it is not visible. It becomes a veil of that indivisible point. The second one comes about, but that is also bright. What does HBB tell us in the Secret Doctrine? She tells us that our own soul is so bright, if we were to actually visualize it internally, it would blind us. So what you see is, what is it? It's reflection. Our soul is as bright as that light because it comes from there. It's a tough understanding because you really have to look at it over and over again to perceive its truth. So yes, it is correlated to the logoic light, but remember the solar system has 7 levels of differentiation. The only one they talked about was Pleiades in explaining this. And where does it get, that's the first attraction. Our sun is attracted to Pleiades. Where does it get attracted after that? How are we going to put the location 7 times until you get to the galactic center? Where is the galactic center attracted to? There's a 7-level attraction on it. Milky Way is our galaxy. The sun, which represents the invisible power behind it, because it's replenished. It says, HPV says that power provides replenishment. Whatever the sun gives out is replenished from that archaic level behind it. That central spiritual sun provides the replenishment. So it is not incandescent and its power is not diminishing. It says here in the Secret Doctrine. These are not my words, it comes from here. She says it is not diminishing, it will be here as long as it is necessary. So you have to be able to go from one attraction to the next attraction to get to the root of it. This student does not know how to do that yet. But I understand your question and you understand the meaning that has been given, because she does not precision-orientedly give that answer to your question. You have to figure it out. You had a second question. Yes,
Yes.
we will now answer your second
Okay.
question.
Under the idea of as above, so below, we evolve with our, we evolve the same as the universe, if you will?
Like the universe.
Like the universe.
Mhm.
Okay.
Inside out.
Okay.
Mhm.
Another question. We are the same essence, but I get to make the question short. I can choose to evolve in being a devil, and you can choose to evolve in being a god?
That's a very loaded question. In our essence, where our spiritual and soul life is concerned, we all come from that beautiful white light. Okay, each one of us as a soul and spirit, the Trimurti in other words. Atma, a spirit, Buddhi, a spiritual soul, Manas, mind. This is the permanent aspect of each human being. Atma, Buddhi, Manas, the spirit, the spiritual soul, and the mind. This is the part that goes from life to life to life. So it is the permanent in each human being. Now, in order to complete this, we have the quaternary here, and it's the mind that connects it, because the mind works in two different ways, we said. Higher aspect is this. It pulls it upwards towards the compassionate, the universal, in other words, to one unity that it comes from. But this part, the lower mind here, which is the intellectual mind, pulls it down to where? To the personality. In other words, it wants to achieve personal things. Its aim is for itself. It's not concerned about anybody else. Now, she says in the article, Noetic Action, that the tendency of the mind becomes automatic, reflective, as it builds grooves in answering its questions, or how it is going to do things, or how it approaches life itself. And the grooves are the grooves that we see in the brain. In other words, it becomes facilitating. It facilitates a particular mode very fast, easily, because the other consideration is not there. Now, if you are a soul that you have been in development for millions of years, and all of your lives are consistent with doing good, not just for yourself, but your family, all those people around you in your community, and then you can expand that to your nation and so forth. Well, suppose you are not that. Suppose you're very selfish, self-centered, unconcerned about anyone else. Life after life, you come into this earth life in an incarnation with a body, and you continue on with that kind of lifestyle, one life after another. Now, she tells us that wickedness is comparative in life, that it is self-chosen. No one else is making those decisions for us. But remember, she says, that the intellectual capacity, we can become a giant intellectually with absolutely nothing spiritual in us. She says intellectualism grows at a cost to spirituality. Most of the time, she says, the masters can influence the minds of the simple people who are not intellectual, but they are spiritual because they go with that core in themselves. They have that innate sense of what is right and wrong, and they follow the innate capacity to do good. Then she tells us that those wicked ones, life after life, considering only themselves and doing wicked things to other people to obtain what they want. Very tricky statement, this wicked. And she says, eventually, it makes everything simple to go in this direction. In other words, you're going down. You're being pulled to earth. And you're going to do worse things in each lifetime. And this is how those killings and stuff that is undesirable as a human soul comes about. And eventually, she says, if you continue on in this path, your soul will detach itself. And this is not explained in religions. We are souls in a body, in incarnation. We're not a body with a soul. We're a soul occupying a body. And this triad, which is the permanent aspect, the individuality of each human being that goes from life to life, will separate from this quaternary. The link is broken, in other words, because you have become so wicked, it has no attraction to this center, and it falls off. And HPV says we come across these human beings in all walks of life, which shocked this student, that there are people who have lost their connection to their higher triad and they're walking on earth without it. That is really dangerous for humanity. But she says, in all walks of life, those beings exist.
So they don't have a conscience.
Yeah.
Well, they can't connect to that conscience.
Not one is severed. But at the same time, she says that if all of the goodness has not left that person, and by being connected to some act through another human being who is good and for the benefit of everyone, including the wicked guy, maybe that impulse moves them in the direction to try to connect it. Now she says, if this harmonious connection has been severed in a previous life and they have come back with no connection to their consciousness, it is very difficult to reestablish it. But if you severed it in this life through some wicked activity that you have been following for a long time, but you come to understanding the error of your ways, you can make a tremendous effort to reestablish that connection. Now she also tells us, is it Jekyll and Hyde? Yeah, that is a true classification of this event here. That if you read it with this idea in mind, that when people are soulless and say they have severed it and now they drop the body, they're in where? Kamaloka, and their attraction is to people that can give them life. They become, in our words, leeches in the astral and kamalokic locations. But she says the best protection is to have a clear mind and a heart that beats for compassion for everyone. That is our surest way of protection everywhere we go. So what was the other part of your question? I forgot.
I think you kind of answered it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So
I can
that part
go down
is...
or I can go up. It's my choice.
Okay, as long as reincarnation, karma and reincarnation is not included in our lives, this philosophy makes absolutely no sense. Because from this writing, we learn that consciousness is on a continuum, because this entity, the higher triad, is immortal. If it wasn't immortal, how would you then define immortality? Because it goes from one life to another life to another life, but in each new incarnation, it gets a different body with a different brain. And that is why we cannot remember what we were doing in the previous life, because we were not the same body, we did not have the same brain. In each life, depending on the individuality's needs, what is the soul going to do when it comes into incarnation? The soul knows, because it reviews at the entry point as to what is going to be its life. But once we enter that body, forgetfulness comes with it. Unfortunately for us, we don't remember everything we have come to do. So we forget it.
One more question. Let's see if I can think of how to say it. Comparing us to the universe and all therein, I'm gathering this distinction between man's path, which is sort of self-directed, and nature, which is a natural process, continues on. And if you think about it enough, then we sort of influence the environment we're in, because we can influence nature.
Well, nature is part of us because we're interactive with it. But nature only propels humanity forward until the middle point of the fourth round. After that, it is self-induced, self-devised effort that makes us move forward, and that is a decision-making process. In other words, we use our mind to do that process. So nature does propel humanity and all of the other kingdoms to a higher expression of itself naturally. That impulse pushes everything forward. But we have reached the midpoint, and HPV also says that we have come down and now we're turning towards home, our spiritual path. And this path we have to traverse by self-induced, self-devised effort. Nature does not move us forward anymore. We have become thinking, independent human beings. Everything is by choice, and no one can interfere with our choices. Thank you.